views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. You are listening to Ability Radio. I am one of your hosts, Dawn Dyer, of the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands, and we are joined here today by Casey Payton, Executive Director at VI Justice Initiative. Good day, Attorney Payton. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell us, what is VI Justice Initiative?
The VI Justice Initiative, we were formed in 2022. We are the first legal education and defense fund formed here originally in St. Thomas, but we provide services territory-wide. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we function as a legal aid.
That's amazing. So what kind of work have you been doing?
Our first program that we did when we first started was our Clean Slate program that is still running really successfully today. So Clean Slate is when you, as attorneys, assist folks through the expungement process to clear their records. And so there's a lot of people in the Virgin Islands who had some kind of contact with the court, and they're eligible to have that taken off their arrest record. And so we provide that service for free. It's free, full legal representation to go through the expungement petition process before the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. And then last year, we began our Teen Intervention and Criminal Deterrence Know Your Rights project, which I'm so excited to talk about today.
Awesome. I think the expungement thing is really great, too. That helps people to get jobs, to get housing. What types of people are eligible for that?
So our organization does not have any eligibility criteria, meaning anybody can come to our organization if you have had court involvement before the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. However, what helps us know if you're a person that we can assist is we look at the law of the Virgin Islands. And so if under the laws of the Virgin Islands, you are eligible for an expungement, then we will represent you. And a lot more people are eligible than you would think. And so what we recommend is to just give our office a call, 340-774-6504. You'll get to speak to an attorney, and we will go through your record to find out what, if anything, we can get taken off.
That's great. So you were saying you started Know Your Rights campaign in the schools last year, was it?
Yes, it was the beginning of 2024. We launched it in January 2024. And, it all started when I had an opportunity as a student in law school. I went to Howard University School of Law. And so back in 2013, when I was a student, part of their criminal justice clinic, we had an opportunity to go into the court system in Washington, D.C., and speak with juvenile offenders and their parents about what are their rights. And it was part of the probation program there. And so several of my colleagues across the country have brought similar programs to their communities. And so I used to be a public defender in St. Thomas, a local public defender. And I was really impressed by Mr. Chesterfield's Law on You program because I felt like it was very similar. But when that program no longer continued after, I think it was the hurricanes, our organization thought, maybe this is something that we can kind of bring back so that we can ensure that all students in this generation have an opportunity to learn their rights.
Okay, and you started on St. Thomas?
Yes, actually, our very first one we did was in St. John at Julius Sproul. But yes, the St. Thomas, St. John district, because I am physically located in St. Thomas and I was a public defender in St. Thomas, it was a little bit easier to make those connections with the different teachers and principals. But once the Department of Education got involved, then we got on a regular calendar. And then we were able to start bringing the program to St. Croix as well. And so the Department of Education primarily has us focus on students who are involved in the in-school suspension program. And it's students who probably do not have court involvement today, but they're very much at risk. And so it is a group that is really important for us to be able to reach. And we've been having a lot of success with that program.
And that's great. I know I've participated in some of those programs with you over on St. Croix, and I think maybe my colleagues on St. Thomas have helped you out over there before. But I think the kids, when I've been there with you, have been really engaged. Have you been focused on the age group, the sixth graders, also on St. Thomas?
So we go where we're invited. So we've done anywhere from age 5 up to seniors in high school. When we first got started, we really thought it was going to be, 7th to 10th grade. That was kind of what we were assuming would be teachers asking for us to come. But we've been really surprised. Honestly, teachers of younger and younger students, when kind of the behavior starts, that's when the teachers want us to come in. And so you've seen us with, 6th graders, 7th graders, and it's really fun with them because they hear a lot of things on TV or they've heard about a lot of, stuff through different cop shows or things like that, but they don't really know what the law is, and our attorneys are able to explain it to them in a way that they've been really receptive, right?
Yeah, I think so. They seemed really engaged and had a lot of questions. And I think what stuck with me is they were really surprised to learn about some of the consequences, I think, for the actions that they've already done or they know their peers have done and like what could come of that. So I think it is really important.
We focus on the economic consequences. And with this group, with the youth, it does become something that they get accustomed to seeing, kids maybe pushing or shoving other kids, or kids maybe taking something that doesn't belong to them, but putting actual words to this behavior, like this could be a simple assault, this could be a petty larceny, what does stealing look like? What does it mean? How can it escalate? And we don't want this behavior to be so normalized that kids don't realize that they're doing something that they could get in trouble for. And so I have to mention that when we started this program, I sat down with the Chief Territorial Public Defender, Julie Smith Todman, and it was really her office that assisted us with coming up with the curriculum. And so allowing students to learn that seemingly innocent behavior that they may think is funny or as a joke or everybody does it has real life criminal consequences, and not just once you turn 18, but it can have consequences even when you're a student and even when you're in school or on the school bus. And so we really want to educate kids so that they can have a sense of agency and in making sure that they can make better decisions, because these decisions that they're making now and the behavior they have now, it's going to have consequences that are going to follow them. And so that's kind of what we try to focus on. And I think also when you're talking to kids about economic consequences, what does that mean? Well, this is behavior that can come between you and your ability to make money. Depending on the age group, I mean, that really opens their eyes, not realizing that behavior in school can affect your purchasing power down the line. And we like to illustrate that with a lot of examples for them.
Yeah, I think that was what really got their attention also. They, like you said, you don't want to normalize the behavior. And that age group that we were talking to, the middle school age group, is really focused, I think, like on their future, and they want a lot for themselves. So I think that's a good motivator.
Another way that the Disability Rights Center has partnered with us is through Edith Williams Alternative Academy. So community advocate Shambi Carr, right? She has her program that she puts over, that she does at Edith Williams in St. Thomas. I think it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They have a class. And last semester, the fall semester, we were invited to come over once a month. And so depending on what the Disability Rights Center's curriculum was for that particular month, our organization did a different presentation. And so we were able to do this workshop 4 times throughout the semester. And the students really got an opportunity to get to know us and to understand, the purpose of us coming. And each time we came, we would have different attorneys with us with a different topic, different stories, different people that the students could connect to. And we've continued that. So we may not be at Edith Williams every month, but we continue to come back and bring new and interesting programming to these students to help them kind of understand, like we said, the real life consequences of their actions.
And that's awesome. I wish that we could bring something like that over to St. Croix also, to the alternative school over here. I think the
I don't
kids
see
would
why
really
not.
benefit. Yeah,
Yeah, we need to work on that. I would love to.
for sure. So when you're speaking with these kids, what kind of conversations are you having with young kids like 5 years old about knowing your legal rights and consequences?
All the really little ones. So we try to use hypotheticals that are age appropriate, or a lot of times we're just kind of familiarizing them with the terms. So, for example, you know, what is an attorney? What does an attorney do? Why does somebody want to become an attorney? How is an attorney different from somebody else with a different kind of profession? A lot of times with young ones, it's really fun to do kind of a mock trial. So this is something very different than what we would do for the older students. But we I I don't know at what point, you know, we as people learn what happens in a courtroom. Usually it's at some point, I think, when you're watching TV or something like that, Law and Order. But just introducing young kids to the fact that, when somebody is accused of doing something, that there's actually a process that's followed and that there's a judge and there might be a jury and there's these attorneys who are trying to, defend somebody or to, get somebody in trouble or something like that. Just kind of adding a story to these words that they're hearing with the really young ones. But we don't go super duper young. Like, I think we did one. There was this amazing after school program. I honestly don't even know if it's still around, called Renewing the Spirit. And it has a lot of like neurodiverse kids who they would pick up after school and bring for, group counseling and things like that. And so that was probably the youngest group of kids that we had. And we were ready to come in and kind of, like I said, just kind of explain these terms and stuff like this. But what we realized was that these young kids had already been exposed to so much, so much. And I think part of that is because they've kind of already been identified as at-risk youth. And, some kids, because of their circumstances, they know and understand a lot more about, the court system or, interactions with police officers than you would expect at their young age. And so I had a group of public defenders that I came with, and we were just blown away by these kids' questions. They really kind of took us back because you just assume that young kids growing up all get to be, innocent and, not really understand these bigger concepts, but these kids really did. And so I've learned not to have like a preconceived notion of what we're going to talk about when we come in, and leaving a lot of room for questions and for having the conversation move in the direction where the kids are interested, where their questions are going. So that's what we do with the really little ones.
That's awesome. I think that, identifying those children who are at risk in our community is pretty important. You mentioned that you're talking with the kids that are like at in-school suspension, the kids that are having academic issues or like disengagement from school. Are there other ways that you're identifying kids that are at risk and reaching that population?
I think a lot of it is our coalition building that we do, having community partners, and Disability Rights Center fits right in with that. I think that, maybe 20, 30 years ago, everybody, the different nonprofits or agencies kind of stayed in their own silos. But I don't think that that's something that our generation, the next generations are doing anymore. There's a lot more intersectionality, right? And so we can come together, the VI Justice Initiative, the Office of the Territorial Public Defender, the Disability Rights Center, we can all see that it's the same group of at-risk youth that can benefit from all of our different services. And a lot of times, we're trying to reach kids and make it so that they don't kind of go to the other side where now they do have court involvement and now they have to deal with, juvenile delinquency, or now they have to deal with, not being able to go to school or things like this. And so I think it's really important for us to work together, different organizations, agencies in the Virgin Islands, because it is the same population that we serve. We just serve them in different ways.
Absolutely. I think that we're definitely stronger together and can do a better job at supporting, especially those kids, if we're able to do that in a unified way, like we have been. I think that, they really responded well to those amazing stickers that you hand out also.
I love our stickers. When we started this program, we knew we needed something to be able to engage kids with, and having pizza parties and having snacks and all this stuff just really wasn't feasible because we want to go before a whole lot of kids. And so we were trying to find some kind of tangible thing that they would be interested in receiving to encourage them to start to ask questions and to answer questions and be engaged from the beginning of our workshops. And so what we did is we have this wonderful, wonderful illustrator. Her name's Sarah Ann Mitchell for Sparrow and the Finch Designs. She's from St. Thomas. And she just created these beautiful, beautiful stickers for us, specifically for our Know Your Rights program, There's not really any other way to get these special stickers, and they're filled with all kinds of, symbols of the Virgin Islands, and they're sparkly and they're cool, and it doesn't matter what age the kids are or adults. People love the stickers. And so, if you're going into a room cold, right, and you only have maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, we don't spend a whole lot of time with the get to know yous and talking at the kids. We really want to start from the beginning by getting them prepared to raise their hand and ask questions, and we check for understanding, and the kids want the stickers.
They do. I think you managed to engage every single child in every group that I was with those
That's
stickers.
The goal.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
It's been really good. I think also, I was impressed by how in tune they were, with the coalition between like mental health and maybe being involved in the criminal justice system and the things that they needed to do to take care of their mental health. I think this generation of kids is pretty aware, of self-care.
Yes. And I think that we have the space in our workshops to talk to kids about why somebody may find themselves in a particular situation, thinking about it in not like a judgmental way, but just thinking, what, like it's not all black and white, right? And so we're talking about larceny, we're talking about stealing. I remember one of the attorneys posed the question to kids, why might, a mother of 4 children steal this food or this other thing, or, let's think about it. Let's think about why people actually do this stuff. Let's have some humanity in this conversation and not just say, oh, this is us versus them. Talking about little ones with the younger groups, I used to always start at saying, I don't believe in there's good people or there's bad people. There's just the choices that we make. And, we're talking about how to make good choices. And so having them actually think through, why kids might get together and do kind of a group activity that's criminal in nature. And we talk about peer pressure. We talk about how every single person who participates can get in trouble, not just the person who was at the front and took the thing. It's actually everybody. And, you can't really hide in a group when you're doing, group criminal activity, that everybody is ultimately responsible for it in the eyes of the law. And these ideas, like this isn't something that kids oftentimes think about, and I think it's something that adults don't oftentimes think about. And as a former public defender, I had an opportunity so many times watching, the light bulb go off in adults' eyes where they got charged with something and the judge is telling them how much time they're possibly facing in jail for that charge, and the adult had no idea that their particular role could lead to that type of trouble. And so it's not super complicated. It's just not something that people really talk about, and they don't get an opportunity to talk about with a lawyer. And so us bringing lawyers into the classroom, into the after-school programs, into the youth groups, into the summer camps, when we're invited, it gives kids an opportunity to ask questions without getting in trouble. It's really just providing this education as a form of intervention.
Yeah, I think that's a great conversation just about peer pressure and the consequences. I could tell several of the kids that we spoke to were pretty surprised to find out that the behavior of their friends could impact them directly based on little involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think that that's really positive. It's a good
We,
message
we
for them. And I think when you speak to them and you tell them look, I know these are big words, but I think you guys can handle this. I think you're smart. I think you'll understand. It challenges them to understand and engage. So I think that's been really positive too.
Thanks. We do. We do talk to kids like they're grown-ups because we're talking about big, big words, important concepts. We're not, hiding things from them because at the end of the day, this is their life, their behavior in school or outside of school that's going to lead to consequences that affect them, affect their schooling, their housing, their ability to get into college.
So what else does the VI Justice Initiative have planned for this year?
So I was just before the call, I was just mentioning how we have a whole new communications plan. We're kind of revamping our website a little bit this year because we really want to focus on ensuring that the community understands the programs that we offer and the type of litigation that we do, because we do have events that we put on in the community and receptions and things like that. And I think it's been about 3 years. Next month will be 3 years since we started. And we want to make it easier for the community to understand exactly what it is that we do so that folks know what to come to us for. And so there's some stuff that we've been doing a little bit more behind the scenes because it's litigation, right? And litigation isn't always the most exciting word. And it's not necessarily direct services litigation, which I think folks are more familiar with legal aid. You can understand our Clean Slate program. You come to us, you want an expungement, we help you with the expungement. But there's other types of litigation that we do that's not like a walk-in type of thing. It's something that's more systemic, types of high-impact litigation that we do. We have a class action right now. And so we are a law firm. And we are a law firm that provides a free service. We don't charge for anything that we do. We fundraise for it, but we're able to make a substantial impact in the community through the type of litigation that we do. And so this year we want to make that a little bit more clear so folks can understand, what we're here for and what we value.
That's wonderful. It's been really good talking with you, and I think that everyone looks forward to, I know you said it's only been 3 years, but you do a big fundraiser in the fall, right? The pumpkin patch.
We do. We just secured the date for our 4th annual Harvest Festival and Pumpkin Patch. It is our biggest fundraiser we do of the year, and we do it at Megan's Bay in St. Thomas, and we bring the tractor hayride and the pumpkin patch, and the farmers market and the vendors and all of that. And it's all to raise money for these programs that we're talking about. So it's from the community, it's for the community, it's free community events, but we still are able to raise a considerable amount of money to pour back into the community through our free legal services.
Awesome. All right. So just to close out, Attorney Payton, I think that it's amazing that, you've started this Know Your Rights program in the territory. It's going to be, you have a calendar already for St. Thomas. Hopefully we'll get that nailed down in St. Croix also, and be out talking to more kids this year.
Yes. So, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am Casey Payton, the Executive Director of the VI Justice Initiative. We are a 501c3 legal education defense fund based in St. Thomas, but we provide services territory-wide. Our phone number is 340-774-6504, or you can reach us online at vijustice.org.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Ability Radio.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.